Captain Vexaluna gripped the command chair as her massive Helix-class cruiser shuddered through space. Warning lights flashed red across every console, and the acrid smell of burning circuits filled the bridge. Her ship was dying, and she knew it. The damage was catastrophic. A pirate ambush near the outer rim had left her vessel's core systems barely functional. The main drive sputtered like a sick animal. Life support wheezed through damaged filters, and half her weapon systems were completely offline. Worse yet, she was carrying a cargo hold full of medical supplies desperately needed on 3 different colony worlds. Time was running out. She had already tried everything. The prestigious Zentari shipyards had taken one look at her vessel and quoted a repair cost that would bankrupt her entire trading company. The efficient Mechanist Guild had run their diagnostics and declared the damage economically unfeasible to repair. Even the supposedly miracle-working hegemony engineers had shaken their heads and suggested she sell the ship for scrap metal. Now, drifting on emergency power toward Titan Station, Vexaluna felt desperation creeping into her hearts. The human repair facility was her last hope, though she didn't expect much. Humans were still relatively new to galactic society, and their technology seemed primitive compared to the advanced civilizations she was used to dealing with. Their tools looked crude, their methods appeared chaotic, and their facilities lacked the sterile perfection of proper alien engineering bays. As her limping cruiser approached the human repair dock, Vexaluna could see the facility through her viewport. It looked nothing like the sleek automated repair stations she was familiar with. Instead, she saw humans in oil-stained coveralls swarming over various alien vessels, sparks flying from welding torches, and what appeared to be organized chaos. Everywhere she looked, her communication system crackled to life. "This is Titan Station Repair Bay. We see you coming in hot, Captain. Looks like you've had quite the adventure out there." Vexaluna's translator struggled with the casual human dialect. "Yes, I require emergency repairs. My ship is barely functional. 3 major facilities have already refused the job." There was a pause, then footsteps echoed through the comm channel. A new voice came on, calmer and more professional. "Captain, this is Chief Engineer Kim. I'm looking at your ship's external damage right now through our scanners. I can see why others might have turned you away. That's some serious hurt your vessel's taken." Vexaluna's hope began to fade. Here it comes, she thought. Another rejection, but Kim's next words caught her completely off guard. "When do you need to fly again?" The alien captain blinked her large eyes in confusion. "I'm sorry. What did you say?" I asked. "When you need your ship operational." "Tomorrow? Next week? Because I can see several ways to get you back in the void, but the timeline affects our approach." Vexaluna had expected another lecture about impossible repairs and astronomical costs. Instead, this human engineer was talking as if fixing her unfixable ship was just another day at the office. His casual confidence was both surprising and oddly reassuring. You believe you can actually repair her?" she asked hesitantly. Kim chuckled through the comm. "Captain, we specialize in ships other people have given up on. Bring her into Bay 7 and let's get to work." Within minutes of docking, Vexaluna watched in amazement as dozens of humans swarmed over her damaged cruiser like ants on spilled sugar. But these weren't the sterile, methodical technicians she was used to seeing at other repair facilities. These humans moved with purpose, energy, and what could only be described as enthusiasm. Engineer Park was the first to catch her attention. While other species would have spent hours analyzing her ship's damaged power couplings with expensive diagnostic equipment, Park simply grabbed a handful of what looked like random scrap metal from a nearby bin. He held up twisted pieces of salvaged conduit, old circuit boards, and even what appeared to be parts from a cooking appliance. "This'll work," he muttered to himself, then started welding the pieces together right there on the spot. Vexaluna approached him cautiously. "Excuse me, but what exactly are you doing with those materials?" Park looked up from his work, safety goggles pushed up on his forehead. "Making you a custom power adapter. See, your ship uses Helix standard energy couplings, but the replacement parts we have are Terran spec, so I'm building a bridge between the 2 systems." "But those parts aren't even from the same technology family," Vexaluna protested. "How can you possibly make them compatible?" Park grinned and held up his improvised Creation. Who says they have to be from the same family? Metal conducts electricity pretty much the same way whether it's human or alien. Physics doesn't care about manufacturing standards. Meanwhile, across the ship, Mechanic Lee was performing what could only be called technological magic. Vexaluna's life support system was completely fried, with toxic gas leaking into several compartments. Instead of ordering expensive replacement units that would take weeks to arrive, Lee had somehow connected human atmospheric recyclers directly to her ship's alien environmental controls. This shouldn't be possible, Vexaluna whispered to herself, as she watched Lee crawl out of an access panel, covered in grease but smiling triumphantly. What shouldn't be possible? Lee asked, wiping his hands on a rag. Your atmospheric systems operate on completely different principles than ours. The chemical processes, the filtration methods, even the basic air composition standards are incompatible. Lee shrugged. Yeah, but air is air, right? Your people breathe oxygen, we breathe oxygen. Your ship needs clean air. Our recyclers make clean air. I just had to convince them to talk to each other nicely. He showed her his work, a maze of improvised connections, jury-rigged sensors, and what looked suspiciously like duct tape holding crucial components together. It was ugly, chaotic, and completely against every engineering principle she had ever learned, but it was working. All around her ship, similar scenes played out. Humans with simple tools accomplished in hours what sophisticated alien facilities claimed would take weeks or months. They didn't have the latest diagnostic computers, but they had something else, an almost supernatural ability to make incompatible things work together. Chief Engineer Kim appeared at her side, watching his teamwork with obvious pride. I know it looks crazy, he said, reading her expression, but sometimes crazy is exactly what broken things need. As if to prove his point, her ship's main lights suddenly flickered on for the first time in days. By the second day of repairs, Vexaluna began noticing something strange. The humans weren't just fixing what was broken, they were changing things that had never been damaged in the first place. She found structural engineer Choi deep inside her ship's hull, wielding a plasma torch near the main support beams. These beams had survived the pirate attack without a scratch, so Vexaluna couldn't understand why he was working on them. "Excuse me," she called out over the sound of his equipment. "Those support structures weren't damaged in the attack. Why are you modifying them?" Choi shut off his torch and pulled up his face shield. Sweat beaded on his forehead, but his eyes sparkled with excitement. "You're right, they weren't damaged. But I noticed something while I was working on the adjacent power systems. These beams are carrying way more stress than they should be." He pointed to barely visible stress marks on the metal that Vexaluna had never noticed before. "See these microfractures? They're not dangerous now, but in another year or two of heavy cargo runs, you'd be looking at a catastrophic hull failure. So I'm reinforcing them with an additional support matrix. But that's not part of the original design specifications," Vexaluna protested. "Nope," Choi agreed cheerfully. "It's better than the original design. Your shipbuilders did good work, but they were probably working within cost constraints. I don't have to worry about keeping prices low, so I can make it right." Across the ship, she discovered systems specialist Han rewiring her entire power distribution network. This was particularly puzzling because her power systems had been working perfectly before the attack. "What are you doing to my electrical systems?" she asked, trying to keep the worry out of her voice. Han looked up from a complex diagram he had drawn on the wall. "Optimizing your power flow. Your ship was running at about 60% efficiency, which is pretty standard for most vessels. But with a few tweaks to the routing and some upgraded junction boxes, I can get you up to 85%. 85%? Vexaluna's eyes widened. "That's impossible. No ship operates at that level of efficiency." "Well, yours will." "Now," Han said with a grin, "want to see how it works?" He led her to a central power junction that had been completely rebuilt. Where before there had been a standard distribution box, now there was an elegant web of connections that seemed to flow like water. "I studied your ship's power demands for different systems," Han explained. "Your original setup treated all systems equally, but that's wasteful. Your engines need massive power during acceleration, but almost nothing during cruise. Your life support needs steady power, but can handle brief fluctuations. So I created a smart distribution system that automatically Adjusts based on real-time needs. Vexluna stared at the modification in amazement. This is completely beyond standard engineering practices. Yeah, that's kind of our thing, came Kim's voice from behind her. The chief engineer approached with a satisfied expression. We've been getting a lot of questions about our methods lately. I have to ask, Vexluna said, turning to face him. Why do you do this? Why not just repair what's broken and send me on my way? Kim's grin widened. Because that's not how we work. We don't just fix broken things, Captain. We make them unbreakable. When you leave here, your ship won't just be as good as new. It'll be better than it ever was. 3 weeks after Vexluna's miraculous repair, Captain Thex limped into Titan, station with what looked more like a floating scrap heap than a working starship. His ancient cargo hauler had seen better decades, and the massive crack running along its quantum manifold housing made it clear why he was here. I heard about what you people did for Captain Vexluna, Thex said, his forearms gesturing helplessly at his damaged ship. But I think my situation might be hopeless. Every engineer in 3 sectors has told me the same thing. When a quantum manifold cracks like this, the ship is finished. Kim walked around the damaged vessel, whistling low. The crack in the key manifold housing was indeed severe, a jagged line that ran nearly the entire length of the critical component. Quantum energy was bleeding out in visible streams, and the containment field was fluctuating dangerously. Yeah, this is a tough one, Kim admitted, running his hand along the damaged surface. Most facilities would tell you to scrap it, because replacing a quantum manifold costs more than your ship is worth. Thex's shoulders sagged. That's exactly what they said. I've been hauling cargo for 40 years with this ship. She's not pretty, but she's been my home and my livelihood. Hold on, Kim said, pulling out his tablet and taking detailed scans. I didn't say we couldn't fix it. I just said it was tough. There's a difference. Over the next several days, the human team worked on what seemed like an impossible task. Instead of trying to seal the crack, which everyone knew wouldn't hold under quantum stress, they completely redesigned the manifold housing. Engineer Park created a new support structure that distributed the quantum field pressure across multiple points instead of relying on a single containment wall. The original design was flawed from the beginning, Park explained to the fascinated Thex. It put all the stress on one critical component. When that fails, the whole system fails. But if we spread that stress across multiple backup systems, even if one fails, the others keep working. The result was a quantum manifold that was not only repaired, but actually more stable than when it was first built. Thex's old cargo hauler was now running more smoothly than ships half its age. Word of this impossible repair spread through the galactic shipping networks like wildfire. Captain Zara arrived the following week with a passenger liner that had been declared a total loss after a meteor strike. The week after that, Captain Vox brought in a mining vessel with a completely burned-out navigation system. Each time, the human team found ways to not just repair the damage, but to make the ships better than they had ever been before. The small repair bay that had once served mainly human vessels now had a waiting list of alien ships stretching out for months. We're getting famous, Kim told his team during their weekly meeting. Ships are coming from as far as the outer colonies. Just to see if we can fix what everyone else says is unfixable. Mechanic Lee grinned. Good thing we like a challenge? The queue outside Titan Station grew longer each day, filled with alien captains who had heard the rumors and decided to see for themselves if humans really could work miracles. The boardroom of the Galactic Repair Consortium was unusually tense. Representatives from the most powerful repair facilities across 3 sectors had gathered for an emergency meeting, and the topic was becoming impossible to ignore. We're losing contracts at an alarming rate, announced Director Veltar of the prestigious Zentari shipyards. His normally calm demeanor showed cracks of frustration. Ships that would normally come to us are heading straight to this human facility. Chief Administrator Crix from the Mechanist Guild slammed a data pad on the table. It's worse than losing contracts. Our customers are asking us why we can't do what the humans do. They're questioning repair methods we've used successfully for centuries. The numbers were undeniable. In just 6 months, Titan Station's human repair bay had captured nearly 30% of the sector's premium repair business. More troubling, was that their customers weren't just satisfied, they were telling everyone they knew about the incredible work the humans were doing. "There has to be an explanation," insisted Supervisor Henth from the Engineering Coalition. "No one can consistently perform repairs that quickly without cutting corners somewhere. They must be using substandard materials or skipping safety protocols." The solution seemed obvious to the assembled alien executives. They would send a joint inspection team to expose whatever shortcuts the humans were taking. Once their dangerous practices were revealed, the galactic shipping community would return to the established, reliable repair facilities they had always trusted. Inspector General Korth led the investigation team that arrived at Titan Station 2 weeks later. He brought with him the most advanced scanning equipment available, certified auditors from multiple species, and a thick folder of galactic safety regulations that he was certain the humans were violating. "We're here to conduct a routine safety inspection," Korth announced to Kim, his tone making it clear this would be anything but routine. "No problem," Kim replied cheerfully. "Feel free to look at anything you want. We've got nothing to hide." What followed was the most thorough inspection any repair facility had ever undergone. The alien team examined every tool, scanned every repair, and tested every modification the humans had made. They expected to find evidence of dangerous shortcuts, illegal modifications, or substandard materials. Instead, they found the opposite. "These welds are 40% stronger than galactic standard requires," reported one inspector, staring at his scanner in confusion. "The power systems they've installed exceed safety margins by over 200%, added another. "Most." Shocking of all was when they examined the structural modifications. Not only did every human repair meet galactic safety standards, they far exceeded them. Where regulations called for components to withstand certain stress levels, human modifications could handle nearly double that load. "I don't understand," Korth admitted to Kim after 3 days of intensive inspection. "Your repairs are not just adequate, they're over-engineered to an almost ridiculous degree. Why do you build everything so much stronger than necessary?" Mbin scratched his head and smiled. "I guess it's just how we think about things. If we're going to fix something, we want to make sure it stays fixed. And if we can make it a little better while we're at it, why wouldn't we? But the extra materials, the additional labor time, doesn't that make your operation unprofitable?" "Maybe by your standards," Kim shrugged. "But we'd rather do the job right once than have a ship come back with the same problem 6 months later. Plus, word of mouth is great advertising." The inspection team left Titan Station with a problem they hadn't anticipated. They couldn't expose the humans for cutting corners, because the humans weren't cutting corners. They were adding extra corners that nobody had asked for. The emergency alarm at Titan Station had never sounded quite like this before. When the massive coalition battleship Valor's Edge appeared on their sensors, it wasn't requesting permission to dock. It was broadcasting a general distress call that made everyone's blood run cold. "This is Battleship Valor's Edge declaring." "Code Black Emergency," came the panicked voice over the comm. "Exotic matter containment is failing. We are preparing to abandon ship. All vessels maintain safe distance of 50 kilometers." Kim rushed to the observation deck and felt his stomach drop. Even from a distance, he could see the battleship's hull flickering with unnatural colors as exotic matter energy leaked from its core. The massive warship was essentially a floating bomb that could take out half the station if it exploded. Captain Nextar's voice crackled through the comm again, strain evident in every word. "Titan Station, we're going to try to make it to your dock. Our crew needs immediate evacuation. The exotic matter core has a breach we can't seal." "What about repairs?" Kim asked, though he already knew the answer. A bitter laugh came through the speaker. "There are maybe 3 facilities in the entire galaxy that can handle exotic matter containment repairs, and they're all weeks away. We've got maybe 6 hours before complete containment failure." As the battleship limped closer, Kim could see Coalition crew members already loading into escape pods. These weren't cowards. Exotic matter explosions left nothing behind, not even debris. When a core that size went critical, it simply erased everything within a massive radius. In the repair bay, the human team gathered around Kim as he explained the situation. Most of them had never even seen exotic matter technology, let alone worked on it. The Coalition used it to power their largest warships, but the technology was closely guarded and impossibly complex. So basically, we've got a ship full of contained black hole material that's about to become uncontained, summarized Engineer Young, scratching his head. And if we can't figure out how to fix it, boom. That's about the size of it, Kim confirmed. Grimly, Young walked over to a workbench and grabbed a napkin from someone's lunch. He started sketching furiously, his mind already working on the problem. Okay, so exotic matter containment works by using magnetic fields and gravitational manipulation to keep the stuff stable, right? Jung, this isn't like fixing a busted engine, Park protested. This is technology that costs billions of credits just to understand. Yeah, but the basic principle is still containment, Jung replied, not looking up from his sketching. We contain stuff all the time. Pressure vessels, magnetic bottles, even our fusion reactors use containment fields. He held up his napkin, which now showed a rough diagram of what looked like a completely improvised containment system. What if we don't try to fix their fancy exotic matter housing? What if we build our own containment system around the damaged one? The room fell. Silent. Kim stared at the sketch, his engineer's mind racing through the implications. You want to jury-rig an exotic matter containment system? He said slowly, using spare parts from our workshop. Why not? Jung shrugged. The worst that can happen is we all get vaporized, which is going to happen anyway if we don't try something. Outside, the Coalition battleship continued its slow approach, each passing minute bringing them closer to catastrophe. What happened next would be talked about in engineering circles for decades to come. Jung's crazy plan required every piece of industrial equipment the station had. They wheeled magnetic containment units from the fusion reactor maintenance bay, gravity manipulators from the cargo handling systems, and even repurposed medical scanning equipment to monitor exotic matter fluctuations. This is insane, muttered Coalition Chief Engineer Vexilon, as he watched the humans build what could only be described as a technological Frankenstein's monster around his ship's failing core. You're using equipment that was never designed to handle exotic matter. Yeah, but metal doesn't care what it was designed for, Jung replied, welding another support strut into place. Physics is physics, whether we're containing fusion plasma or exotic matter. The principles are the same. The improvised containment system looked nothing like the sleek Coalition technology it was meant to replace, where the original exotic matter housing was a perfect sphere of polished quantum steel. Jung's creation resembled a mechanical spider web wrapped around the damaged core. Cables, magnetic field generators, and gravity wells created an intricate lattice that shouldn't have worked according to any textbook, but it did work. As the final connections came online, the dangerous energy fluctuations from the damaged core began to stabilize. The sickly colors flickering across the battleship's hull faded to normal metal gray. Most importantly, the countdown to catastrophic failure stopped ticking. Impossible, breathed Captain Nextar, staring at his readouts. The exotic matter is completely contained. Energy output is stable. How did you do this? Kim wiped grease from his hands and shrugged. We just gave your exotic matter a bigger cage to live in. When the original containment started failing, we built a backup system around it. But this violates dozens of established principles of exotic matter physics, protested Vexilon. You can't just mix different containment technologies like this. Why not? Asked Jung, genuinely puzzled. If it keeps the dangerous stuff contained, what difference does it make how we do it? The Coalition engineers had no answer for that. Their entire understanding of exotic matter technology was built on the idea that it required perfect, precise conditions to remain stable. The human approach, to throw everything at the problem and see what works, should have resulted in disaster. Instead, their hybrid containment system was actually more stable than the original. Word of the impossible repair spread through the Coalition fleet within hours. By the next day, Admiral Rexthor herself was standing in the repair bay, offering Kim a contract that would make him rich beyond imagination. The Coalition needs this technology, she said, gesturing at Jung's improvised containment system. Name your price. We'll pay anything for exclusive access to your methods. Kim looked around at his team, then back at the Admiral. Thanks for the offer, but we're not really interested in exclusive contracts. Not interested? The Admiral's four eyes widened in shock. Do you understand what you've accomplished here? You've revolutionized exotic matter containment using spare parts and scrap metal. Yeah, and that's pretty cool, Kim agreed. But if we sign exclusive contracts, that means other people who need help can't get it. What happens when some cargo hauler captain shows up here with a busted drive and we have to turn them away because we're too busy working on military contracts? The Admiral stared at him in disbelief. You're turning down billions of credits to help cargo haulers? We're mechanics, Kim said simply. We fix things that are broken. It doesn't matter if it's a battleship or a garbage scow. If it needs fixing and we can help, that's what we do. As the Vela's Edge departed with its impossible repair holding strong, the human team was already back to work on their next challenge, a passenger liner with a broken air recycling system. Just another day at Titan Station. Admiral Kethzor of the Galactic Naval Commission arrived at Titan Station with a mission that had been keeping her awake for weeks. Reports of human technological miracles had reached the highest levels of galactic government, and her superiors needed to understand how a species that had barely joined galactic society was outperforming civilizations with thousands of years of advanced engineering. She came expecting to find some revolutionary new technology, perhaps secret alien allies, or maybe evidence of dangerous experimentation that needed to be shut down. What she found instead was something far more puzzling. Admiral, welcome to Titan Station, Kim greeted her as she stepped off her transport. I understand you're here to observe our operations. That's correct, Kethzor replied, her keen eyes already scanning the repair bay. I've been tasked with understanding your methods. What followed was the most intensive observation study any repair facility had ever undergone. For 2 weeks, Admiral Kethzor watched every aspect of the human team's work. She documented their tools, analyzed their techniques, and interviewed both the workers and their customers. On the surface, nothing seemed extraordinary. The humans used standard tools, worked with common materials, and didn't appear to possess any advanced technology that other species lacked. Yet somehow, they consistently achieved results that defied explanation. The breakthrough came when she watched Jung tackle a seemingly impossible problem. A transport ship had arrived with a navigation computer that was completely fried by an electromagnetic storm. The ship's AI had tried every standard diagnostic protocol and declared the system unrepairable. But Jung didn't start with diagnostics. Instead, he sat down next to the damaged computer and stared at it for nearly an hour, occasionally prodding different components with a simple multimeter. What are you doing? Admiral Kethzor asked, genuinely curious. Thinking, Jung replied without looking up. This computer got hit by electromagnetic interference, right? But not all the circuits would have been affected the same way. Some parts are probably fine, some are completely fried, and some are probably just confused. He pointed to different sections of the computer. So instead of trying to fix everything, I'm figuring out which parts I can save, which parts I need to replace, and which parts I can trick into working again. Admiral. Kethzor watched in fascination as Jung began what could only be described as electronic surgery. He bypassed damaged circuits, rerouted signals through undamaged pathways, and somehow convinced components designed for completely different purposes to work together. This approach isn't in any manual, she observed. Nope, Jung agreed cheerfully. Manuals are written for normal problems. This isn't a normal problem, so it needs a custom solution. That's when it hit her. The Admiral realized she had been looking for the wrong thing entirely. She had expected to find superior technology or secret knowledge. Instead, she had discovered something much more profound. Later that day, she called Kim into a private meeting. I think I understand now, she said. Your people don't see broken systems the same way other species do. Kim tilted his head curiously. What do you mean? When most engineers encounter a damaged system, they see a problem to be solved according to established procedures. But your people see each breakdown as a unique puzzle that requires a creative solution. She pulled up her notes on her data pad. I've watched your team for 2 weeks now. You rarely use the same repair method twice, even for similar problems. Every job is approached as if it's the first time you've ever seen that type of damage. Well, yeah, Kim said, as if this was obvious. Every ship is different, every breakdown happens under different circumstances. Why would we use cookie-cutter solutions for unique problems? Admiral Kethzor nodded slowly. And that's your secret, isn't it? Other species have spent centuries developing standardized repair procedures. We've become so focused on following protocols that we've forgotten how to improvise. I guess that makes sense, Kim mused. We're still pretty new to all this galactic technology stuff, so we don't really know what's supposed to be impossible yet. The Admiral smiled. The humans' greatest advantage wasn't superior knowledge. It was their willingness to ignore the limitations that other species had accepted as unchangeable facts. 2 years after Admiral Kethzor's investigation, Titan Station had become something nobody could have predicted, the most sought-after repair facility in 3 galactic sectors. Ships that could afford to go anywhere chose to wait months for a spot in the human repair queue rather than get immediate service elsewhere. The transformation was remarkable. What had started as a small, unassuming repair bay now sprawled across multiple docking platforms, each one constantly busy with vessels from dozens of different species. But the most surprising change wasn't the size of the operation, it was the students. "Excuse me, Engineer Kim," said Zelnara, a young Zentari student clutching a datapad nervously. "Could you explain why you chose to reroute the plasma flow through the secondary manifold instead of replacing the primary coupling?" Kim looked up from the engine he was working on, his face streaked with lubricant. Around him, nearly 20 alien students from various engineering academies watched intently, hoping to catch some glimpse of the mysterious human method they'd traveled across the galaxy to study. "Well," Kim said, wiping his hands on a rag, "the primary coupling would have taken 3 weeks to get shipped here, and this cargo hauler needs to make a delivery run next Tuesday. The secondary manifold can handle the load just fine if we adjust the flow rates and add some extra cooling." The students frantically scribbled notes, as if Kim had just revealed some profound engineering secret. In reality, he had simply described what seemed like common sense to him. This scene repeated itself daily throughout the station. The Galactic Engineering Consortium had established a permanent research facility on Titan Station, sending their brightest students to study under the humans. Universities offered advanced degrees in applied human engineering principles. Technical journals published papers with titles like The Psychology of Impossible Repairs and Breaking Protocol When Standard Methods Fail. But the more the alien academics studied, the more frustrated they became. They expected to find complex theories, advanced mathematics, or secret technologies. Instead, they found mechanics who approached each problem with curiosity rather than protocol. "I don't understand," complained Professor Vextim from the prestigious Hegemony Institute of Technology. He had been observing the human team for 3 months and was no closer to understanding their methods. There has to be some underlying system, some theoretical framework that explains their success rate. Park overheard this conversation while working on a nearby fusion reactor. "You're overthinking it, Professor," he called out. "We just figure out what's broken and fix it." "But you don't follow any established procedures," the professor protested. "You improvise solutions that shouldn't work according to standard engineering principles." "Maybe that's the problem," Park suggested, emerging from the reactor housing. "You're so focused on what should work that you miss what actually does work." The real breakthrough in understanding came from an unexpected source. Dr. Melina, a xenopsychologist studying cultural differences in problem-solving approaches, published a paper that finally explained what made humans different. "The human advantage isn't technical," she wrote. "It's philosophical. When faced with a problem declared impossible by established authorities, most species accept this limitation. Humans simply don't." She had documented hundreds of conversations with human engineers and found a common thread in their thinking. When told something couldn't be done, humans didn't argue or debate the impossibility. They just started working on it anyway. When Captain Young was told that exotic matter containment couldn't be jury-rigged, Dr. Melina noted in her study, his response wasn't to accept this limitation. His response was, "Let's try it and see what happens." This mindset had become legendary throughout the galaxy. When ship captains faced catastrophic breakdowns that left them stranded, they no longer despaired. Instead, they plotted courses for Titan Station, knowing that if anyone could solve their problem, it would be the humans who refused to accept that problems couldn't be solved. The phrase, "we'll figure it out," had become synonymous with human engineering. It wasn't a promise backed by superior technology or advanced knowledge. It was something far more powerful, an unshakable belief that every problem had a solution, and that with enough creativity, determination, and willingness to ignore conventional wisdom, that solution could be found. The galaxy had learned that when humans said, "we'll figure it out," they always did.